They'll mostly be going to...
In a rural corner of Maine, just off a vital river, on a small feeder brook, a group of citizens have undertaken a project that reaches beyond this spot to affect the lives of many others. It has the look of construction, but the replacement of a road culvert turns out to be the story of folks coming together to make their corner of the planet a little better.
You'll have an arc from there to another set of concrete footers.
It all started with their love of the St. George's River, which winds through 57 miles of mid-coast Maine before spilling itself into the Gulf of Maine. Along the way, it feeds all kinds of souls.
We've had a sawmill here on the Georges River since 1881. We hunt along the river, we fish the river, we whitewater canoe the river. It's just a big part of our life.
It's even about just sitting on a rock or a stump and watching the world go by. It's almost wilderness-like, as it was 100 years ago or more. It was the lifeblood of not just this town, but many, many towns here in Maine.
Just as the community owes itself to the river owes its existence to the brooks and streams that feed it.
Some of these little streams along here takes you back to being like a kid.
Most kids who grew up in Maine can ride their bike somewhere and catch a wild brook trout. Half of the intact brook trout populations are here in Maine. It's part of our heritage, and we always just kind of assumed it was going to be that way forever.
But when we take notice, even a fish can tell us something about the condition of our world.
Brook trout are a pretty good indicator of habitat quality. They're very sensitive to pollution. They're very sensitive to warm water temperatures. They've got to find food 12 months out of the year, and they'll move over an area of 25 or 30 miles upstream and downstream. Anything that blocks them from doing that is going to really limit their populations.
So one day, Dan Daly, a fisherman and artist, noticed something we built causing a problem.
I just went to that spot to go fishing one day and looked back and went, that's not right.
Sitting between Jam Brook and that connection to the ocean, there's this culvert. Actually, it's two culverts side by side, and they are complete barriers to fish passage.
There's a space in between, and there's a drop. I recognized that was a problem of that perch, that drop.
They're what's called hung. Fish can't jump into a culvert. Jumping into a round hole above their heads is not something they evolved to do. All of a sudden, instead of 25 or 30 miles of interconnected streams fish can swim through, between this culvert and that culvert, there's 1.5 miles of stream, and that's all the fish have.
Dan recognized this was a problem not only for the fish, but for the entire watershed.
A stream is like the circulatory system. Once you start plugging up, it quickly does something to the whole ecosystem. The stream going over that is the highway for everything. It's for turtles migrating, it's for salamanders, amphibians.
It's not just the fish, it supports wildlife as well. All of those animals. There are trails that go along the streams that is used by the wildlife to prey on whatever they need to survive.
Dan reached out to fellow river enthusiasts for help.
The culverts actually got identified as a problem by Dan Daly, who's one of our members and volunteers.
Well, I got to know Dan Daly through Trout Unlimited. He and I are both members of that, and we fish together sometimes. So he came to see me to see if I'd be willing to help him on it. You know, we're all in it together. We just naturally got the Georges River Land Trust involved because they're so interested in protecting the river, which we obviously are too. And so we just all got working together on it.
I thought, this is really an important project because it would clean up the river, in fact that it would allow fish passage, and it would demonstrate the importance of something that can often go unnoticed, culverts that sit under our roads that many of us don't even know are there.
Dan realized he didn't have to know all the answers. He just needed contact with people who do.
There was an engineer, and he said, well, I'll contribute some time doing hydrology studies. I talked to another engineer about it, and he said the way to really go on this is to do some kind of an arch culvert.
We eventually got a design for that, 30-foot wide, 26-foot wide arch culvert, which would essentially leave a natural stream bottom underneath it. It's got a 75-year design life. It's designed to pass the 100-year flood. They've got the footers put down, and now we're building a new sandbag cofferdam. We'll run water through half of the restored channel here, and then probably tomorrow they'll pull this second culvert out. If you see, you've got the concrete blocks and the metal angle irons here. You'll have an arch from there to another set of concrete footers with another set of angle irons, and it'll just be a big arch over the top, filled with gravel, and the road surface on top of that.
Securing the knowledge was one challenge. Executing the project, including raising the money, was another.
All of a sudden, it was a really big project. There was so much minutia and technical stuff that I just didn't have a clue about. I'm an artist. I'm a fisherman. I had never even done a grant application before, and there was a point there where I was pretty discouraged.
His collaborators stepped up.
That's part of what we do with land transactions and finding money and making projects happen from A to Z.
When a project gets too big, we're there to give assistance and push those projects through.
Jeff was the project manager. He did all the heavy lifting at the end. I just kept the hoop rolling for as long as it took to make it happen.
Dan and team had taken a leap that the town hadn't felt it could afford.
Tax money is short, property taxes are already too high. To do it right does cost more. But the thing is it's long-term thinking or short-term thinking. What actually costs more? What actually costs less?
What you end up happening a lot of times with these undersized culverts is that they tend to fail every time we get a 6-inch rainstorm. We don't necessarily think about the cost of that because it's sort of out-of-pocket money dealing with an emergency. But over time, that's a significant drain on small town resources.
The town selectmen are very responsible people, and they were trying to do it right. But I don't believe there's been enough educating especially the towns that are replacing all these culverts and all these rural roads about how to do it.
And I think that these are these heavy decisions that a lot of these municipalities weigh. Is there some way maybe you can make that leap?
It was a leap worth taking. Dan and his team watched as the project came to life.
You could see that things were changing, and it was a warm day, and I was walking down there, and there was a little salamander walking along that bank. He was like, dum, 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 and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. you know? The highway's been opened up.
When a culvert is restored in the upper watershed, it has a direct impact on the health of the Gulf of Maine ecosystem.
I believe it helps the economy. If you've got good fishing and good hunting in well-managed woodlands, that creates jobs.
If we could bring back all that potential spawning access, I think it would go a long ways in restoring the fishery in the Gulf of Maine, which is worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
And so there have been a number of comprehensive efforts, kind of on a watershed by watershed basis, to look at where are the barriers. Between a third and 2/3 of road crossings are considered severe blockages.
It just means as we build those roads and those water crossings, we have to do it in a way that allows the natural movement of water to pass underneath.
You go over a stream and you look down and you go, oh, there's another one, you know? Or you go over one and it's a beautiful job. It was like, ooh, yeah, that they did right.
Communities depend on that. Because when we make choices for ourselves, we affect everyone around us. Each person came to this project with his or her own focus and experience. But a shared vision united them through the effort of making change. And it started with one person taking notice of something, knowing it could be better, and inspiring others to come along for the ride.
If you get involved in something, it grabs you. I mean, at a certain point, you have to make your stand about something. You have to say, maybe there's something I can do here. And it's a whole lot tougher to leave it better sometimes. But, you know, if you love something, that's what you want to do.